Hello YouTube, hello Internet, it's Irix Guy here. I wanted to take a moment to share something with everyone. It's tips for improved business email communications. And here we go with our slideshow. I'll try to make this as informative as possible. For starters, the first thing that one should do is identify the target audience. Now the target audience is the entity to which the email is being sent. So, are they a coworker? Are they a manager? Are they technically minded? Are they familiar with the subject matter being discussed? These are just a few items to consider before sending an email, because not everyone, number one, not everyone expects the same type of verbiage in an email, and number two, not everyone possesses the same set of skills. So, for example, if you're a computer nerd and you send an email to someone that's an operations person, a manager with minimal computer skills, and you're shooting computer jargon, it's likely not going to be that effective. But if you explained everything in a no-nonsense kind of way, it could be an effective email. So we'll get onto that here in a minute. But before doing anything, identify the target audience. Next, determine the objective. What objective do you wish to achieve as a result of sending the email? And emails can be sent for multiple business reasons. If you cannot determine a purpose for sending an email, then there's likely no business reason to compose and send an email. So in other words, emails for personal purposes are a different animal. You might send an email or a text message to a friend, hey man, let's go get some food or something. Let's do that. But when you're at work, everything has a purpose. Every minute, every second in the office has a purpose, and that purpose should be to propel the profitability of whatever entity an individual works for. So, time is everything. Personal emails, sending those would be a waste of company's time and money. And likewise, sending an email that serves no business purpose, even if it contains business-related topics, but it doesn't really do anything, there's no point in sending that email, because you're wasting your time and you're also wasting the company's time. Okay, so why send an email? Documentation purposes. For example, hey, I changed the light bulb in the lamp in room number 505. Just wanted you to know. Documentation. Follow up to a voicemail message. Okay, you call somebody, they don't answer. It's very urgent. And you say, hey, I've got to have this at X time, and I'm already 5 days late, and I need this, and they don't answer. And you've called this person for the past week, and they continue not to answer. Every time a voicemail is sent that is of significant importance, always follow up with an email to that person and say, per my voicemail, and then repeat not word for word what you said in the voicemail, but state the same thing in the email. That way, there's an electronic paper trail confirming, number one, that you called this person, and number two, what you're working to obtain from this person. Just a wise idea. Another reason to send an email would be an FYI. And this could be anything. Well, hey, FYI, I won't be able to attend the 12 o'clock meeting because I've got a lunch meeting with Joe Bob. That's a good example of an FYI email. And then the CYA will cover your, you can plug in your own word there. A lot of times in the business world, unfortunately, people don't always have the best intentions. So it's always good, whenever possible, even if it's an email, maybe just to yourself, to your own inbox, to send it just so a time that something happened is documented, date, time, all the specifics, whatever. That way, if anything arises regarding whatever, it's documented. And it's not like someone's making comments on the fly. Verbal comments within a business hold very little weight. Everything that that one's able to document in writing is it's so much better, because anything in writing, especially emails that are electronically time-stamped and dated, it's really a wise thing. Always protect yourself. And why else would one possibly send an email? To engage others for their input regarding a question. Just common sense kind of things. And then be aware of tone. Now, tone, an email, of course, contains no facial expressions or body language. And what I always do, I reread all my emails before sending to ensure that it is free of comments that may be misinterpreted. So there's a lot of ambiguous phrases out there, and if I say something in an email and it's misinterpreted, it could be very personally damaging. Also, avoid using all capital letters. All capital letters are interpreted as yelling, and this applies to emails, text messages. It's important to stay away from that. And what I would recommend, if it's something of urgency, I wouldn't put it in all caps, but I would underline it. And a lot of times, highlighting in red in certain scenarios is appropriate, just to point out risk. But highlighting in red when directing comments to an individual, I would usually stay away from that, because the color red, and likewise with all capital characters, can be interpreted in an email as threatening in a way. So be careful with capital letters and red highlights. And finally, keep all comments business professional and refrain from humor, sarcasm, or abbreviations. It's okay to use acronyms sometimes, and the best way to do that, if it's a business-related acronym, is when the first mention of that is included in an email, spell out what it says, and then after it, put the acronym. And then going forward, you can just use the acronym instead of the full abbreviation. For example, SCUBA, self-contained underwater breathing apparatus. I might say, the self-contained underwater breathing apparatus failed epically. But after I type self-contained underwater breathing apparatus, I'd put SCUBA in parentheses and quotes. And then going forward in email, I would just say, the SCUBA failed epically. So that's just an example there. Carbon copy all involved. This is something that a lot of people fail to do. And sometimes it may seem that people send a lot of unnecessary emails, but if you look at an email, there's a to field and then there's a CC field. The CC field is also referred to as a carbon copy field, and that's just informational. So if I'm making comments about a person by the name of Jimbo, and I'm sending this email to a large distribution of people, I want to be sure to carbon copy Jimbo on there so that he's aware of what I've said. I mean, otherwise, the recipients might assume that I'm saying someone said something and they really didn't. And likewise, the person that's referenced in the email would be a little bit offended if I send this information to a large distribution and fail to copy him as an FYI. He might wonder why I didn't include him there. So just something to be aware of. Email signature, and this is very important. I mean, you'll see all types of email signatures. You'll see email signatures with all kinds of graphics and huge, and just clog your inbox. And the most important thing about an email signature is to create an email signature that includes your name, job title, email address, and other contact information if applicable. And this is up to the individual, but at a minimum, include your name and a way to contact you, whether it's name and email, whether it's name, email, phone number, whatever might be the best fit for your organization, include it there. And something I always do, I never include thank you or any other closing comments as part of the default email signature. If you'll notice, there's a lot of people in the business world that'll send an email and it always says thanks, no matter what the topic being discussed is. So as a rule of thumb, I always exclude that and I manually type it in. And I try to mix it up. Like I'll say best regards, thanks, thank you, regards, etc. And that just adds a little bit of personal touch to the business email. It lets the recipient know that, hey, there's a human on the other end. And that's important at times. Tailor for target audience. Learn the various types of target audiences within your organization. Tailor your communications to suit their needs. Be sure that the email you're sending is going to be as effective as possible given the person that will be reading that email. This is something that is often this is a huge point of failure, because a lot of times people will send an email and it doesn't serve any purpose because it's so cryptic for the other person to understand that they're wasting their time reading it, and the person sending it has also wasted their time sending it. So phrase emails in a way that is easy for the recipient to understand. For example, don't send the same technical jargon to a non-technical director that you'd send to a technically minded coworker. So, for example, to a technically minded coworker, I might say, I installed another DIMM module of memory, and I bumped it up to a gigabyte of memory. And to the non-technical person, I would say, the workstation's memory has been doubled. It now contains 1 gigabyte of memory instead of 512 megs. So that's a simple example. Be concise. Situations where in situations where additional details might be warranted, provide a quick summary first and then include additional details below. This should satisfy the entire target audience. And efficiency drives any business. Always summarize each email to the best of your abilities. A lot of times people are checking emails on mobile devices. A lot of times they've got 5, 10, 15, 20 emails open concurrently. And it's usually the first sentence that's going to get their attention. And something I do, and you don't have to put everything 100% grammatically correct in business email. It's a different realm. But in business email, what you might want to do is just have that key sentence on top and then space and then add the additional details below that. I do that a lot of the time. For example, let's think of a good example. The dump truck is no longer able to dump because the thing on the back is busted, and that would be my first sentence. So in other words, the dump truck doesn't work. And then down below, I might say the dump truck doesn't work because part number H5992 is ruptured, and the replacement for that item cost X amount. It can be purchased from this vendor, blah blah blah. So let the issue stand out. Bring the issue out, or maybe not an issue, whatever the topic of interest is. State it clearly first, and then include the details. Just makes it a lot more well perceived by the recipient. And be specific. Stick to facts and reference sources of information when applicable. If you're saying that it's going to rain tomorrow, well, why is it going to rain tomorrow? And then say, well, weather station 5592 said there's a threat of wall clouds forming, and here's a link. You can check for yourself. Let people do their own due diligence. Back up. Let them research and confirm the claims that you make, if they choose to do so. And reference specific times and time frames when applicable. Business emails, timelines drive most any business. So when you've got a specific time or a time frame, state it. Try to identify the goal in one sentence up front, i.e., example, I need your help to obtain purchase approval for more charcoal. Well, like we said earlier, that's another example. I'm out of charcoal. I need purchase approval. And then down below, I might say a bag of charcoal costs $5.95, and it can be obtained from whatever vendor. And here's the number we can call to order it. Just an example. And stick to business. This is so important. Consider any email to be public. Protect yourself from the possibility of an email inadvertently being forwarded forwarded to someone else and coming back to bite you. I made some typos in that. See, I didn't proofread this. I should have. Should have proofread it more closely. But what this means is that any email, and it may not even be intentional, but any email can be easily forwarded. For example, say that someone had their phone in their pocket and they put it down on their dinner table or whatever, and then a cat jumped on it, and it forwarded the email to the director, and it was something that had some snide things to say there. It was inadvertently forwarded, or not snide things, but things that they didn't want to be brought directly to that person's attention. So it was inadvertently forwarded, and they can't undo that. The recipient has read the email, and had they been a little bit more cautious with what they were saying in all their emails, that situation could have been avoided. And again, just as I've already reiterated here, stick to business topics only within emails. If you've got personal stuff to discuss, don't use email. Don't use instant messages. Don't even use a phone. Just talk to somebody in person and keep it all, off the record, because you don't want anything associated. At least I don't. When it comes to business, I want business only. I don't want any personal elements whatsoever attached with associating me with the business, rather. It's just my personal opinion, and I think it's a battle plan that seems to work well. And that's all that I've got, and I'll plan to post some more videos with some tips. Just wanted to put something together. I thought it would be hopefully of value for some people, and I welcome your feedback, and feel free to check out my other videos on YouTube. Have a good one.